let's chant the mantra.
Yep.
Anya devahu sambhavad.
Anya divahu sambhavad.
Anya dohur sambhavat.
Anya dahu rasambhavat.
Iti shushuma dhiranam.
Iti shushruma dhiranam.
Yenastad vichachakshire.
Yenastad vichachakshare. Anya devahu sambhavad.
Anya devahu sambhavad.
Anyad ahur asambhavat.
Anya dohur sambhavat.
Iti shushruma dhiranam.
Iti shushuma dhiranam.
Yenastad vichachakshare.
Yenastad vichachakshire. I think we definitely at least recited the verse because remember we had noticed that the last two lines we had did in a previous verse. So that's in mantra 10. The last two lines are exactly the same.
Yep.
So I remember that came up that the last two lines of this verse were the same as mantra 10. So we've probably just started it.
Yeah.
And anyway, let's just see. There's no harm in reading it again. Okay, do you want to read the translation?
It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. Yeah. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it.
Yeah. So once again, we can see that, you know, this is a real science. If you follow one process, you're going to get a specific result. And if you follow a different process, you're going to get a different result. You wouldn't expect that you follow process A and process B, which is a different process, and you're going to get the same result. No, you're not going to get the same result. You know, like if you're cooking a curry and one curry you throw in, you know, a tablespoon of mustard seeds and 5 chilies and everything, and another one you put cumin seeds and ginger and you put different vegetables, it's not going to taste the same. You're not going to get the same result. You're going to get a different result because it's a different process. You put different ingredients in. So the same thing here. If you worship God, you know, the supreme cause of all causes, like in Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma, he says that Krishna is Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. So Anadir Adir Govinda. Has no cause, and he's the origin of everything, and he's the cause of all causes. So if you worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's the cause of all causes, and that's really one definition of God, is people say, well, what's God? So what is God? God is the original cause. He has no cause. He's the cause of all other causes. Everything comes from him. Like it says in the 10th chapter, text 8 of Bhagavad Gita, Aham savasya prabhavo mata savam pravadita iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhavasamanvata. Krishna says, I am the source of the spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. So that's God. You know, everything comes from him. Everything comes from God. Everything emanates from him. He's the source of everything. So you're going to get one result if you worship God, the cause of all causes. But if you worship someone that's not God, you know, like a demigod or a human being or an asura, a demon or a ghost or a politician, you know, then you're going to get a different result. So what will those results be? What are the different results? If you worship the cause of all causes, God, you're going to get moksha. You're going to go back home, back to Godhead. I'll give you an example. one of Krishna's names, another one of his names is called Mukunda. You know that name, Mukunda?
Yeah. Mukunda.
So what, you know the meaning of Mukunda? What is the meaning of Mukunda? Mukunda means the one who gives liberation. That person who can give you the liberation, the mukti. That's why his name is Mukunda, because he is giving the mukti. Da means giving. So one who gives the mukti, that's Mukunda. You know, he's giving the mukti. So interestingly, that only Krishna has that as his name, Mukunda. Not even Shiva has a name, because Shiva has many names, but he doesn't have any names that says Mukunda. And Brahma is also not Mukunda. Durga is not Mukunda. There's only one Mukunda, and that's Krishna. He's the only one that can get us out of the material world and take us to Vaikuntha. So yeah, if you worship God, the cause of all causes, then the result will be that you get liberated from all suffering, that you can go to the Vaikuntha for eternal blissful life. And if you worship someone that's not supreme, well, they can't give you liberation. So then where are you going to end up? You're going to come back again. Samsara, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi. You're going to, neither they can liberate themselves, so they have to come back. The person you're worshipping, they are also coming back, reincarnating, and whoever's worshipping them also, same result. You know, they can't even liberate themselves. Then how are they going to liberate their worshippers? So definitely different results. So, but what a lot of the Mayavadis and personalists say, oh, you worship anyone you want, and everyone's going to go get liberated. Everyone's going to go to God. Everyone's going upwards. Oh, my grandma, she went upwards, and you know, my grandpa and my dad, and we have this sentimental idea that doesn't matter what you do, you can be a meat eater and a drunkard, and when you die, everyone goes to heaven. You know, everyone goes to heaven and everything, same result. It doesn't matter whether you're a saint or whether you're a drunkard. Everyone, when they die, they all go to heaven, like that. So like that, we have all these sentimental ideas, which, I mean, it's nice that, you know, we all want to be positive and think that our relatives, they're all going to heaven or whatever. But it's not the truth, you know, that if you follow one process of being a drunkard and a womanizer and a meat eater, and that, you're going to get a different result than if you control your senses and follow religious principles and follow dharma, you know, and being, you know, a worshipper of God and everything like that. So, and on the other side too, if you pretend all externally that you love God and you worship God, but actually internally you're a hypocrite and you're a cheater and you do all kind of bad behavior behind the scenes, you know, then you can't cheat God, and you're still going to have to come back again. So yeah, you really have to follow, you know, a particular process to worship God very sincerely, very seriously, and then you can go to God, you know. And if someone's still very focused on pleasing their own selfish desires and speculating and concocting things in their own mind, then God gives them what they want, you know. Okay, you want to enjoy in the material world, you still think that you're a God and that you can enjoy and control. Okay, come back again and have another go. So, you know, everyone gets, you know, the fruits of their own desires, their own activities. So it's completely fair system. And in the Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna says there in one verse that Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Petran Yanti Vrata Vrata Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja Yanti Majajinopimam. So what that means is that one who worships the demigods, the devas, goes to the devas. So if you worship devas, you go to the devas. Then it says Petran Yanti Pratavata. If you have a vow to worship the ancestors, if you worship the ancestors, the Pitris, then you're going to go to the Pitris. That's where your result's going to be. And then Bhutani Anti Bhuteja, if you worship the ghosts and the spirits, the Bhutas, if you worship the Bhutas, the ghosts, you go to where the ghosts live. And then he says that Yanti Majajino Pimam, if you worship me, you come to me. So, okay, coming to Krishna, where's that? Well, Krishna lives in Vaikuntha. So if you worship Krishna, you'll go to where Krishna is, and that's in Vaikuntha. So it's like I said, it's a science. It's very logical. It makes sense. It's not that, okay, you drive, it doesn't matter where you drive from Sydney, you're all going to end up in the same place. If you drive north or south or west or east from Sydney, everyone ends up in Canberra. No, it doesn't work like that. If you go north, you end up in Brisbane. If you go, south, you'll end up in Melbourne. If you go west, you'll end up in Canberra. If you go east, you'll end up in the ocean. So, you can't say that you just drive anyway and everyone's going to end up in the same place. That's just not logical. You want to say anything about those things?
Yeah. It's that's true. I mean, and that's what I think Prabhupada said. You experiment yourself, you realize yourself rather than, and it's coming from God. So the only, who is Achyut, infallible, who cannot make mistakes, it's coming from him. But whatever coming from our mouth, which is not from there, it's faulty. It's not correct because we are not perfect like him. So the 4 defects we have, because of that, we don't know the 100% truth. The only source is him. So when he's saying that, and you can experience, and as Prabhupada said, you follow the process and you'll get the result. You get realizations, slowly. So that totally makes sense. That what's the actual knowledge, what is actual goal of human being? If you don't understand that, that's ignorance basically, then you're going to go the other way. As you said, you don't, different path take you different way, not to the same place. So, that makes sense. I mean, it's like you go to Prime Minister. If you want to do something, you don't go to his secretary because secretary doesn't have power. You go to the Prime Minister directly so that he can. It's like comparing secretary or the different ministers to the different, we call Bhagwan or different you like Shiva and Brahma. They are like jivas, right? Like us, but on a high level, right? Yeah. So people usually go to pray not Krishna but the other gods. But they don't have the ultimate power. It's the Krishna who has the ultimate power. So you, instead of going to them, you directly go to the authority, which actually controls everything.
Yes.
I mean, that can be understood, as you said, with experience, with the process, following the process, I guess. Where everything lies. And then it's very hard to believe for somebody who is, as you said, Mayavadi, or they have their own concoction. And people who don't believe in God, they don't have anything. I mean, they think they are controlling, and they put everything on themselves. It's like they have the incorrect knowledge or ignorance where all power is. So it makes sense that you basically go, the Supreme, the Godhead, who actually is the controller, or Mukunda, as you said, who can give you the ultimate goal of human life, I guess, or everyone.
Okay, so interesting. You brought up, the impersonalists and that. So, if an impersonalist is worshipping like void, like just the Brahmajyoti, the light, worshipping the light and the void, and like there's no variety, it's just all oneness. So if that's their worship, they're worshipping the void and the oneness. So where would they end up?
They will get the void, I guess.
So if you worship the void, you go to the void, so you're not going to go to Krishna if you worship the void, and if you worship Krishna, you're not going to go to the void, so you worship Krishna, you go to Krishna. If you worship the void, you're going to go to the void. If you worship Ganesh, you'll go to Ganesh. If you worship Shiva, you go to Shiva. Like that, you know. So if you worship the human beings, you'll come back to where the human beings are, if like that. So it's a very, very logical process. And also you mentioned about Shiva and the Jivas. He's an interesting case that he's the only one of all the Devas that's not in the Jiva category. Everyone, including Lord Brahma, is a Jiva, and all the other 33 million demigods. But Mahadeva or Shiva, he has his own category called Shiva Tattva.
Oh.
So there's 3 tattvas, there's categories. There's Vishnu Tattva, that's God's category. You know, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Nrsimha, Varaha, Kurma, Ramachandra, Balaram, Krishna, like that. Narayan, Vishnu, like that. So that's the God category. And then there's Shiva Tattva. So that's just Shiva in that category. And then there's Jiva Tattva. So that's all the minute living entities, including Lord Brahma and all the demigods and all the humans and all the other species who are all tiny souls. But Shiva has his own category. He's not in the Vishnu category, but he's not in the Jiva category either. So he's in between. The explanation in the Brahma Samhita about Lord Shiva is that he's compared to yogurt. Just like yogurt is nothing other than milk. You know, yogurt comes from milk, right? It's just milk with a sour agent added. But at the same time, yogurt's not milk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That yogurt is just a transformation of milk. But at the same time, it's different than milk. So Shiva is God who is interacting in contact with the material world. But he's not Vishnu anymore, because see, the Lord in contact with the material energy, that's Shiva, whereas Vishnu doesn't have any contact with the material energy. He's completely aloof. Like Mahavishnu, he just glances over the pradhan, over the material energy, and impregnates all the souls into the material world. He doesn't have a direct contact with the material world. Whereas Lord Shiva, he's married to the material energy. He's married to Maya Devi, to Durga. So he's directly, has direct contact with the material world. So there is a difference. So he's a very special personality. He's a expansion, a manifestation from Vishnu, but in contact with the material energy. So he has his own special category. But yeah, he's not an ordinary living entity. Okay, so let's continue on.
Yep.
Yeah, and this information that you get one result if you worship God and you get a different result if you don't worship God, where is this conclusion coming from? Undisturbed authorities. So that's the dhiranam, you know, that shushruma dhiranam. It's been heard from the dhiranam, the undisturbed authorities. So dhira, it's also mentioned the word dhira in the Bhagavad Gita, meaning the sober person. So a sober person, one who is not disturbed. So that's what we really want to get knowledge from, as an undisturbed authority. What can we be disturbed by? What does it mean, undisturbed? Undisturbed means what's disturbing us, and these people are not disturbed by those things.
The Maya is the material energy, which is the 3 gunam, we say, which is basically qualities. And so it's not allowing us to think straight, or as say undisturbed.
Yeah, we call conditioned souls. So what are we conditioned by? So by the sattva-gun, the rajagun and tamagun, and by all the miseries, you know, the adi-bautic klesha, adi-daivic klesha, adi-atmic klesha, and disturbed by janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, birth and old age, disease and death. But and you know, hunger and thirst and all these kind of things that afflict us. We get hungry or thirsty or tired, but these liberated souls, they're called mukta purusha, or they're in the material world, but they're like completely aloof. They're transcendental to all the material influences. So when God comes to the material world, he's undisturbed authority, and then also liberated devotees, the great acharyas, the mahatmas, they're also not disturbed by the atmosphere of the material world. They're not under the control of the material energy. So can you tell me, how is it possible for a person to not be under the influence of the material energy? By what process can we get free from the influence of the material energy?
I think the more you associate with something which is transcendental, like Krishna, associated with a devotee or follow them, or as said, the acharyas or gurus who are basically more transcendental. So the more you attach or attracted by transcendental stuff, the more you're going to transform yourself.
Okay, so what is that transcendental stuff? What is the what does it mean to be a devotee? What does a devotee do?
Like least disturbed by three gunas or rising above it, so that you are not.
But what is the process? That's the question. What is the process of rising above the three gunas?
Is it the 9 processes?
Yeah, that's it. So by Bhakti Yoga. So, and then that's said in the second to last verse of the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Manchayo vyavacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati chaitan brahma bhuye kalpate. That one immediately transcends the 3 modes of material nature when one engages in unfailing devotional service. So it means that if one's constantly engaged in devotional service in one of the 9 processes, one after the other or like that, then they're continuously like that without any break, then the effect of that, the result of that, is that one transcends the modes of material nature. So one's no more under the control of the 3 modes. So that's how it can be done, that someone can be on that level of undisturbed in the material world, which is normally a very disturbing place. And normally, because we're covered by ignorance and illusion, we're always disturbed by so many things. Then, but it's possible to be undisturbed if one's fully engaged in devotional service. So, and talking about disturbed, that's mentioned as the primary symptom of Kali Yuga. That above all other symptoms, that in Kali Yuga, the living entities are always disturbed. And disturbed also indicates what's disturbed, the mind. So it's disturbed, really, what is that influencing? It's the mental, on the mental platform, that the mind is disturbed. So the mind is disturbed. So getting back to being undisturbed, if your mind, the secret is, if your mind is always fixed on Krishna, then the mind's not going to be disturbed. So even though the health is no good, but your mind's on Krishna, you're not affected by that. You lost your job, but your mind's fixed on Krishna. Or your partner leaves you, but your mind's fixed on Krishna. Or the political situation is crazy, or there's a war breaks out like in Ukraine. But if your mind's fixed on Krishna, then it's not going away from that and fixing on the politics or fixing on broken body, or fixing on the broken relationship, or you've lost your money. No, because the mind's just fully attached to Krishna. So that's the point where you're not disturbed anymore, where the mind is fixed on Krishna, becomes attached to Krishna, and never goes from there. The mind never leaves that concentration on Krishna. And we see that like in Prahlad's Leela, that Prahlad, even though he was put in so many difficult situations in the 7th Canto Bhagavatam, that he was never disturbed. Even though, I mean, there was a lot of disturbing situations around him. His father was trying to kill him in so many ways, but he was never shaken or disturbed, because he was always concentrating and meditating on Vishnu. And we see that even with the Pandavas were put through so much trauma, but they were always concentrating on their friend Krishna. So they were able to pass through all that. And Prabhupada was put through so much, but he was fixed on Krishna, like that. So we see that in the lives of all devotees, that the secret is their mind is just always just absorbed in Krishna. And of course, the main way we do that, especially in Kali Yuga, to fix the mind on Krishna, is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So you see that advanced devotees, they're always chanting. Like if you look at any pictures of Prabhupada, almost every single picture, you'll see a bead bag in Prabhupada's hand, because he's always chanting, even when there's in the room talking with people, or he's walking somewhere, but he's got his beads in his hand. He's like always chanting. But even if they don't have beads, they're still chanting, or, talking about Krishna or thinking about Krishna. So that's the secret of being undisturbed. So it said that's the main feature of symptom of Kali Yuga. But other symptoms of Kali Yuga mentioned in the 1st Canto Bhagavatam is that in Kali Yuga we have short lives. We have short lives. See, in Dwapara Yuga, the lifespan was up to 1,000 years. In Treta Yuga, it was 10,000 years. In Satya Yuga, 100,000 years. Satya Yuga is 100,000 years. And Kali Yuga is like up to 100. And that's also diminishing. Very rare. So, yeah, that's a symptom of Kali Yuga, short lives. And quarrelsome, a lot of quarrel. Like that's one meaning of Kali. Kali means quarrel. So a lot of fighting, like we can see that, right? Russia and Ukraine and, and the rest of the world. And we're no better off here, where there's so much fighting going on between the Maoris and the non-Maoris and the political groups. And then, the unvaccinated and the vaccinated and the, everyone like that. There's so much fighting, and families fighting and everything, neighbors fighting and everything. And because I used to be a land surveyor, so we used to do, going around doing that. And one of the main jobs we had was determining the boundaries between different neighbors, because the neighbors would be fighting with each other over the boundary. Where's the boundary? So there'd be a big argument. No, you put the fence in the wrong place. The fence should be over here, or your building has come onto my property or something. So they would bring in the surveyor and spend lots of money just to, exactly determine where the boundary was, like that. But it was all based on fighting. They were quarreling with each other in so many things. So that's there. And it said in Kali Yuga, we're very unlucky. And we see that, that people are very, very unlucky, very unfortunate. So many bad things happen, sometimes, the children die, which is very unlucky. Normally the parents die before the children, but in Kali Yuga, often we see sometimes the children, and we had that here in Auckland. One devotee's child died like not even 5 years old. So that's very unlucky. So we see so many things happen like that. People are very unlucky in terms of, their finances don't work out, or their house gets burgled, or whatever like that. So many things like that. Some disease, like I got this disease like that. So, so unfortunate. And then and misguided that, you know, where we have bad leaders.
I
Bad
think
leaders.
this is the one point where I think is because we have been misguided in generations. So it's gone deeper, it's gone more complex. So we are in a kind of chakravyuh where in the center and we can't come out because it's been happening for generations and you've been misguided for generations. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem.
Our parents have misguided, our teachers, our politicians, our bosses, you know, everywhere. The philosophers, the scientists, the religionists, you know, the religionists, the philosophers, the scientists. So from every direction. No wonder why we don't know who we are or why we're here or what the purpose of life is or the goal or anything.
And people who are telling you the truth, they don't want to hear because they are so misguided. So totally, it's very difficult. And as you said, it's meant to be like this. So some people can try and some people will never try and they will keep repeating the same thing the whole life. I mean, so
therefore, you know, because we're so unqualified for spiritual life because of all these different anomalies. Therefore, the spiritual process for liberation in Kali Yuga is made so simplified, is made so we don't have to do very much. All you have to do in Kali Yuga, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Take prasadam, you know, and go back to Godhead. So because we're so unqualified, you know, we're short lives, we're quarrelsome, we're disturbed, we're unlucky, we're misguided. So because of all those disqualifications, so Krishna's looking very kindly on us, Lord Chaitanya, and saying, I feel sorry for you guys. I'm going to give you a real easy ticket out of here. All you have to do is just chant Hare Krishna.
Yeah. The other thing is that if something comes in this Kali Yuga, if something comes too easy, people don't believe it. That's the problem. You know, if you just say, do the mantra and you will think, they'll say, no, that's not going to happen. It's not that simple. So I mean, this is whole, so I mean, it's whole. Very difficult.
And yet Prabhupada said, okay, you are saying it's so easy to chant Hare Krishna. It's too simple, but why you can't do it? So on one side it's very easy, but on the other side it's very difficult because we're so rebellious in Kali Yuga. We don't want to obey the authority. We don't want to follow these undisturbed authorities. They're telling us just chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, go back to Godhead. But we're saying, no, I can't do it. I have no time. I'm too busy or whatever, you know, so our minds, like I said, are so disturbed that we can't accept, you know, something which is so sublime, so nice, so joyful. Because not only it's simple, but it's very joyful, you know, singing, dancing, you know, with musical instruments, you know, the kirtan is sounding so nice and naturally people like to dance and everything. So not only it's very simple, but it's a very joyful process. But because our mind is full of so much rubbish, it's so disturbed by lust, by greed, by anger, by envy and pride and all these things, we're not able to take it up. And that's part of our unlucky. We're so unfortunate that that it's called manda bhagya. So we don't have any good fortune, you know, we're so like that people can't take it up. And yet, but that's the job of the devotees, to try to make the unfortunate people fortunate. So devotees go out like Prabhupada, old man, but he works so hard to try to make these unlucky people lucky. And he did, you know, thousands and thousands, and still the books are being read and people are becoming fortunate and awaken their spiritual interest and like that. So that's the devotee's job, which is a hard job, to try to develop an interest in people where there is no interest, in God and spirituality. People don't have an interest in God or spirituality, but the devotee works very hard through his preaching and everything to try to awaken some attraction there, some interest, some spark, find the spark, fan the spark like that. And that happened, like for us, some devotee found me and fanned the spark.
You just need to, as you said previously, just a little bit of something which shifted their, thinking, their paradigm, basically, that how world works. It's not me. It's the, there is somebody who's controlling. So who's controlling everything. You should be after him rather than anything else. So anyway, yeah, that's so true. But Prabhupada, yeah, he is done. Because of him, we are talking today, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's our service to Prabhupada, carry on his mission by speaking to people, because that's mainly how we can awaken that spark of interest within people, is by our speaking, by the Shabda Brahma, the spiritual sound vibration can enter into the ears of the unfortunate soul, into their heart, and then awaken, because the main problem is ignorance. So how do we counteract that ignorance? Is with knowledge. What knowledge? Divya Jnanam. I was hearing Prabhupada today, he was saying, this is the real blessing from the spiritual master, from the guru, as he is giving the Divya Jnana, the Divya Jnanam. The Divya means transcendental and Jnana means knowledge. So he's giving the transcendental knowledge. So this is the way that we really come out of it, this unfortunate situation, is by hearing from the mouth of the guru. The transcendental knowledge goes into our ears and then to our heart, awakens us. Then that knowledge removes the ignorance in our hearts, and things get better from there. So that's the hope there.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we read some of the purport?
Yeah. The system of hearing from undisturbed authorities is approved in this mantra. Unless one hears from a bona fide acharya who is never disturbed by the changes of the material world, one cannot have the real key to the transcendental knowledge. The bona fide spiritual master who has also heard the Shruti mantra or Vedic knowledge from his undisturbed acharyas never present anything that is not mentioned in the Vedic literature. In Bhagavad Gita 9.25, it is clearly said that those who worship the Pittars or forefathers attain the planet of forefathers, that the gross materialists who make the plans to remain here stay in this world, and that the devotees of the Lord who worship none but Lord Krishna, the supreme cause of all causes, reach him in his spiritual sky. Here also in Sri Isopanisad, it is verified that one achieves different results by different modes of worship. If we worship the Supreme Lord, we will certainly reach him in his eternal abode. And if we worship demigod like the sun god or the moon god, we can reach their respective planets without a doubt. And if we wish to remain on the this wretched planet, with our planning commissions and our stopgap political adjustments, we can certainly do that also.
This is Krishna's kindness, that he gives us free choice. He doesn't force. So you get exactly what you want. If you want him, you can go to him. But if you want to stay in the material world, then you can do that. But that's, as Prabhupada's pointing out, if you look at it objectively, this material world is a wretched place. But the problem is we're so ignorant, people in the material are so ignorant, they think that this is a nice place. But if we really had full knowledge and understood how wonderful is the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha, then we'd realize this place is like a rubbish tip, or like just a toilet. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's the father of Prabhupada's guru. Prabhupada's Guru Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, then his father, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said that a devotee sees the material world as just like a toilet. And you just do your business there and then you leave. You don't want to stay in the toilet, do you? You're not going to spend your life in the toilet. So it's a nasty place, you know, especially like in India. Traditionally, the toilets are not so nice. You know, they're very smelly, dirty places. So, you know, you don't want to hang around in the toilet. So, but the problem is, you know, people are so ignorant. They think that this toilet of a material is so nice. But if we had higher knowledge that we could understand, well, the spiritual world, we can live there eternally, full of bliss and knowledge. There's no birth, no old age, no disease, no death. We don't understand the miserable nature of the material world, you know, because of ignorance. You know, like recently I spent 2 weeks in hospital. You know, just seeing that there's just so much suffering, you know, all around me. I mean, this own body was so much suffering, but also all around me, you know, just so everyone was just suffering. And in many cases, they're not even aware of their own suffering. People come in and say, "Oh, how are you doing?" And they say, "I'm all right, I'm fine." But their body is smashed to pieces, you know, in a miserable situation, but we think we're okay. And that's Maya. That's what is Maya? What does it mean that we're in Maya? That we're suffering, but we think that we're happy. You know, that's Maya, that we think that we can find true happiness in the material world. That's Maya. That this is just a very temporary place. You know, even if we could make it nice, which we wouldn't agree that you can, but even if you could, it's still temporary. So we're going to be forced to leave at some point. Like, do you try to make a very comfortable situation in a transit lounge of an airport? Why not? I mean, why don't you take a lot of comforts with you to the airport?
Yeah, I mean, it's because all you have to move. I mean, it's a lounge. So
you have to move. You know, you're only going to be there for half an hour, an hour or 2 or 3 hours. So you're only there for a short time. You're not trying to be comfortable there. You're just getting ready to go to your next destination. So it's the same thing, but we don't realize that. We don't realize we're all in transit. This body is just a transit lounge. You know, so we've come from one body and we're going to go into another body. So this is just a transitory body we're in, but we're trying to make it very comfortable, and we're forgetting that we're going to another destination. We're not preparing for our next destination. Like sometimes it happens, right? If you go to sleep in the transit lounge, that you might miss your plane. You know, so that's the thing, you know, so sometimes people will be very careful not to sleep because you don't want to not be prepared. So people are not preparing for their next life. So they don't go to a very good place. They don't go to a very good place.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we don't know. This is Maya makes you, you know, basically you're in ignorance. You don't even think about why I cannot get the permanent happiness, and then you start asking questions. But what we do is we get happy sometime, and then after that you go, then it goes away, the happiness, then you are in pain, then you look for happiness. So it's a cycle, but it's basically built to ask. I think we should be asking ourselves the question, why I'm not happy permanently? Then you look for the sources, I guess. And then you say, why I'm not, why is every time it's, you know, sometimes I'm sick, sometimes this, adibautic, you know, three form of miseries. But we don't ask question, or probably we don't have knowledge at that point of time that there is a way to actually get that. And as you said, dhiras, they are happy in this world itself, isn't it?
Mm.
They
Yes.
affected by
Yeah, so that is the exception. I mean, we're saying that the material world is full of suffering and it's temporary, and some people take that as being very pessimistic, but that's the truth. But however, there is an exception, that there is a way that you won't have the experience that it's miserable and you're suffering, and that exception is only achieved through, like I said, fixing your mind on God. If you do that in the material world, then you're already liberated. You're already in the spiritual world. So Lord Chaitanya in one verse says, Puranam Vishvam Sukhayate, that for the devotee of the Lord, that Vishvam in the material world, Purna means completely, Sukhayate, full of happiness. So the Krishna conscious person is fully happy in the material world. But for everyone else, if they're not Krishna conscious, they're guaranteed they're gonna it's miserable. It's miserable because they're if you're not on the spiritual platform, what platform are you on? There's only two options. If you're not on the spiritual transcendental platform, what platform are you on?
Material platform. Basically.
You're on the material platform. And then what is the material platform?
That is the source of temporary happiness, I guess. I mean, pain and misery, or whatever you say.
Yeah. So you're oscillating between, it's called Chapala Sukha, flickering happiness in between bits of misery. So you go from misery to happiness to misery to happiness to misery and happiness. And how does that feel? Is that what we want?
Yeah, no, we don't want that.
We want to always be happy. I mean, who wants their happiness to come to an end? But no one does. We want to be happy all the time. But that on the material platform, you can never have that. You can never have that. So you get a job and you're happy, and then you lose a job and you're unhappy, and then you start a family and you're happy, and then you lose a family and you're unhappy, and then you have a young body and you're happy, and then you get an old body and then you're sad, or you're healthy and you're happy, and you get sick and you're unhappy, so the dualities, always so many dualities, and going through the Adhyatmic, Adhibautic, Adhidaivic, and then Janma Mrityu Jaravyadi, so all these things. So but if your consciousness is absorbed in those things, then that has an effect. Where is all that, all these Adhyatmic, Adhidaivic kleshas and Janma Mrityu Jaravyadi, where is that affecting us? Well, what is experiencing the distress? Where is the distress registering?
I guess, which is
no, the body's just dead matter.
Yeah.
It's not the suffering is not experienced in the body, because the body's just chemicals. It's just earth and water and fire, and so there's no experience of distress or suffering in the body. It's somewhere else. And the soul's nature is ananda. It's always in bliss. So the suffering is not in the soul, and it's not in the dead matter. It's somewhere else.
Is it?
Where is the perception of happiness and suffering, of sukha, dukkha?
You're talking about the mind again. Yeah.
It's in the mind. It's in the mind.
Is part of the body, isn't it?
No. You got different bodies. There's the gross material body.
Oh, and the subtle body.
Earth, water, fire, ether. Then you got the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego, ahankara, and then the spiritual body. So suffering is not in the gross body. Suffering is not in the soul. Suffering is in the subtle body, in the mind. So due to the mind, because the mind misidentifies itself with the body. The mind is identifying itself with the body. So the body is put through whatever, disease and old age and adhyatmic, adhidaivic, everything. And then the mind identifies with that. And then that sensation of pain and pleasure is in the mind. So that's where it is. But like I said, the devotee escapes that because the devotee's mind is on Krishna. It's not on the body. You know, but the material platform, your mind is fixed on your body. So if there's a scratch on your body, then you know, your mind reacts. You know, but the way, so every little pinprick, you know, that affects the body, the mind is absorbed in that, and that's what causes the anxiety and the fear and so many problems, disturbance. We get disturbed. But the secret is to take the mind away from that bodily absorption and absorb it on Krishna, and that's the process of bhakti yoga, of Krishna consciousness, and that's how you get out of that.
And that, I think that's the difference between Dhira and normal people, is that they are able to take the mind away from the material part and then focus on, as you said, on and
therefore the central point of any yoga system, whether it's karma yoga, jnana yoga, astanga yoga, bhakti yoga, is to control the mind. It's all about the mind. That's the foundation. Doesn't matter what yoga you're doing, you got to control the mind.
Yeah.
And because that's the cause of our suffering, that we haven't controlled the mind, and the mind is just so absorbed in the material energy. And because of that, you know, that's the cause of our being here in the first place. And we've got to come back again because of that. You know, so the first thing is you have to take the mind away from that. And so there's different processes of how to do that, you know, but the best and effective process is bhakti yoga, but still it's still the same principle, just how they're doing it, you know, how you're going to control the mind.
But Gita says the other processes are like, you know, very difficult part. Now, I mean, especially in Kali, that's not possible.
Yeah, the other processes they were doing in different yugas, but now none of them are recommended in this yuga. Yeah, not possible. Yeah. Okay, we've got a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Let's read another paragraph.
Yeah.
Nowhere
in authentic scripture it is said that one will ultimately reach the same goal by doing anything or worshipping anyone. Such foolish theories are offered by self-made spiritual masters who have no connection with the parampara, the bona fide system of disciplic succession. The bona fide spiritual master cannot say that all path leads to the same goal and that anyone can attain this goal by his own mode of worship of demigods or of the supreme or whatever. Any common man can very easily understand that a person can reach his destination only when he has purchased a ticket for that destination. A person who has purchased a ticket for Calcutta can reach Calcutta, but not Bombay. But the so-called spiritual master say that any and all paths will take one to the supreme goal. Such mundane and compromising offer attract many foolish creatures who become puffed up with their manufactured methods of spiritual realization. The Vedic instruction, however, do not uphold them unless one has received knowledge from a bona fide spiritual master who is in the recognized line of disciplic succession. One cannot have the real thing as it is. Krishna tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Ivam parampara praptam imam rajyo kale neha mahat yognashta parantapa. Supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of times, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost.
So like we were saying before, that one of the symptoms of Kali Yuga is we're misguided. So there's so many so-called spiritual teachers, gurus, and just misleading people, cheating people. So here Prabhupada is really bashing on them. You know, he's attacking all those cheating gurus. You know, he's mentioned one of them that says, the actual words is yatamat tatupat, that there are many paths and they all lead to the same goal. So Prabhupada is exposing here that's complete nonsense. Like I said, if you purchase a ticket to Calcutta, you're not going to end up in Bombay. You know, so that's rubbish to say that doesn't matter which path you take, you're all going to end up at the same place. So like that, there's so many cheaters misleading people. So that's one of the jobs of a bona fide guru, is to expose all these cheating people, because they're creating havoc in society and so many people going down the wrong path, and it's very hard to help them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have been misguided, most of us, basically. Yeah, generations.
Yeah.
Going wrong. So yeah, that makes total sense. And but yeah, when Prabhupada is saying about the other people are saying there are different ways to reach God, or does that mean that, as you said, there might be other methods, yeah, bhakti yoga, or sorry, the the other types of yogas where the
karma, jnana, stanga, yeah.
Does he mean that all that is, or he's saying that yeah, there are different undocumented processes? He's mostly talking about processes which are manufactured by in the mind of the people with the wrong knowledge, isn't it? He's not talking about other processes. He's talking about people who are making up their concoctions. Basically, that's what word he
used. Yes, yeah. Like what this one guru said, that doesn't matter what path you take, you end up at the same goal. So that's not an authorized process.
Right.
That's something, his speculation. So what Prabhupada's been mentioning in these two paragraphs, he's been talking about parampara, the disciplic succession. You know, so you have to come in an authorized parampara. Means you're in the Vedic system. It means you're getting knowledge that's originally coming from God. You know, so like this karma yoga, jnana yoga, stanga yoga, that's all within the umbrella of the Vedas. But if you're operating outside of the Vedas, means just from your own mind, not from the Vedic truths, then there's no substance, there's no reality. You're an illusion, you're in Maya. And Prabhupada mentioned before, we were just hearing that, where did he say that unless one hears from a bona fide acharya who is never disturbed by the changes of the material world, one cannot have the real key to transcendental knowledge. And then he mentions another sentence later that the bona fide spiritual master who has also heard the Shruti mantras of Vedic knowledge from his undisturbed acharya never presents anything that is not mentioned in the Vedic literature. So Prabhupada's saying that we have to hear from an undisturbed, bona fide spiritual teacher who, what is their position? They have also heard from their spiritual teacher who was undisturbed, follower of the Vedic knowledge. So that never says anything that's not coming from the Vedas. So basically, disciplic succession, he's talking about parampara. And that's the last verse that you quoted, evam parampara praptam, Bhagavad Gita 4:2. So that the knowledge has to come through that parampara. If you ever meet a guru and you ask him, who's your guru? And they say, I don't have a guru, I became self-enlightened or whatever, immediately we know that the person is a rascal, he's a cheater. you know, so there's only one way to become enlightened, and that is we have to hear from someone that was enlightened, from someone that was enlightened, from someone that was enlightened, from someone ultimately from God, you know, so because everyone in the material world is born ignorant. So, you know, the only way to come out of that is we have to hear from someone that's connected with God. We have to hear from someone that's connected with God, you know. Otherwise, we're bound to be, you know, misdirected, bound to be misdirected. You know, Chinese whispers, you know, that game, Chinese whispers.
You say something in somebody's ear and the other one, then by the end, person, whatever the first person said, it totally misinterpreted. It's totally different.
Because each person is, you know, interpreting what they've heard and changing it. So that's not disciplic succession either. You have to exactly follow chastely what you've heard from your guru and not change it. So I heard from him that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So then I tell you the same thing, that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. If I change it, that, you know, everyone's God or you're God or whatever, then it's all lost and it's Chinese whispers. So, yeah, you have to hear from that person that's heard from someone that's heard from God, and then not also change it. And that's why Prabhupada said Bhagavad Gita as it is. That's very important. He put the words as it is, you know, that he didn't change, you know, Krishna's message. Because as soon as you change Krishna's words, then the Shakti, the power, is all lost, you know, like that. So
that's really good. Thank you very much. I think it's too late for you too. And you need to rest, I guess. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Very nice to spend time with you again and talk about Krishna.
It's just, you know, getting there now.